Some physicists have suggested that the universe, the laws of physics, the fundamental constants of physics, are fine-tuned in such a way as to bring us into existence. We have a message from outer space coming in. There are physicists who will tell you that if you take about half a dozen physical constants, these are constants that physicists have no explanation for, they just accept that these numbers have the values that they do, and they then do theoretical calculations using their models to say if any one of these half dozen constants was ever so slightly varied, then the universe as we know it would not be possible. For example, if the gravitational constant was a little bit different, there would be no stars, there would be no galaxies, the entire universe would just be a uniform splurge of hydrogen, for example. You wouldn't have stars, you wouldn't have chemistry, you wouldn't have the formation of the heavier elements, you couldn't have life. And they do the same trick for half a dozen other physical constants. A good example is Martin Rees, the present Astronomer Royal, in his book Just Six Numbers. If the universe, if the constants of the universe are indeed fine-tuned, how do we explain it? How do we explain the appearance that the universe is tuned to bring us into existence? Well, theists say God did it. God twiddled the knobs and tuned the physical constants to have exactly the right values. That, of course, is no explanation at all, because it leaves unexplained the tuner. It's just pushing the problem back one step. So we can instantly discount explanation number one. Explanation number two is adopted by physicists, I think Steven Weinberg, who was quoted earlier in this conference. Steven Weinberg, Nobel Prize-winning physicist from Texas, I think his view is that we don't yet understand enough physics, and when we do, when we have the longed-for theory of everything, the TOE, we will then realize that these knobs are not for tuning. There is no freedom. There are no degrees of freedom. There's only one way for a universe to be. Having accepted the word of physicists that there is an element of fine-tuning, and I've tried to lay out three possible explanations. One would be God, which, as I've said, isn't an explanation at all. One would be the multiverse, and then anthropically, with hindsight, saying we have to be sitting in one of the universes that could give us. But the third one, which I've attributed to you, possibly wrongly, would be what I call the macho physicists, who say, well, it's just that we don't understand why these things are the way they are. One day we will, when we have a theory of everything, it will be understood. But it sounds from our conversation as though that I misrepresented you there.
I don't think one should underestimate the fix we're in, that in the end we will not be able to explain the world, that we will have some set of laws of nature. We will not be able to derive them on the ground simply of mathematical consistency, because we can already think of mathematically consistent laws that don't describe the world as we know it. And we will always be left with a question, why are the laws of nature what they are rather than some other laws? And I don't see any way out of that.
The third explanation is, I think, the one that's probably favored by, oh no, there are four actually. Victor Stenger, who will be known to and greatly respected by many people here, denies that the universe is fine-tuned at all. And that's a serious point of view that we ought to not forget.
The fact that the constants of nature are suitable for life, which is clearly true, we observe.
But assuming that it is fine-tuned,
there is one constant that seems to be fantastically fine-tuned, but we don't, again, we're not sure. and that is the constant called the dark energy, or the vacuum energy, or the cosmological constant.
The final idea, which I think probably most physicists at least have some time for, is the multiverse theory.
No one has constructed a theory in which that's true. I mean, it's not only a speculation. The theory would be speculative, but we don't even have a theory in which that speculation is mathematically realized.
Right, yeah.
So, but it's a possibility. But the only other explanation, well, it's not even an explanation because we don't have a candidate theory, but the only explanation that seems to work is that this is just one of those things that varies from sub-universe to sub-universe, from Big Bang to Big Bang. In most of the Big Bangs, it's very large. It's much larger than what we observe. And in those Big Bangs, they go through, because this energy drives the expansion of the universe, depending on whether it's positive or negative, the universe either blows up so rapidly there's no time for galaxies or stars to form, or it crunches, it recollapses so rapidly, again, there's no time
yeah.
for life to form.
Yes.
So it has to be small for life to exist, and it's about as small as, in fact, that's interesting, it's not much smaller than it would have to be to allow life to arise.
And the fact that the cancellation is so precise means that the number of universes in the multiverse you need to postulate in order to anthropically be comfortable with it is very, very large.
And it must be at least 10 to the 56, or in fact,
exactly, yeah.
If you think you have some idea about fluctuations at even shorter distances, I think you would say at least 10 to the 120. In fact, that's a little disturbing. But, you know, that's only going back so far. Then you have to go back to what started inflation, what started this inflationary period.
That, of course, is no explanation at all, because it leaves unexplained the tuna.
At least 10 to the 120. In fact, that's a little disturbing. It's not only a speculation. The theory would be speculative, but we don't have a theory in which that speculation is mathematically realized.
Yeah.
أولم يتفكروا في أنفسهم ما خلق الله السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى وإن كثيرا من الناس بلقاء ربهم لكافرون.
Once again, physicists find that a bit of a stretch. They find it not exactly implausible, but they think of it as a bit of a cop-out. I actually think it's rather an elegant explanation.
وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَن فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَن سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْ هُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ.